me, I don't normally do this, I'm going to read because the possibility of this.
Can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
That's just modesty on my part. So I apologize for reading this, but I don't want to be misquoted. So if you'll understand, I will appreciate it. Okay, first of all, so much deserves attention today, but my time is limited. My time is told it takes 9 minutes and 47 seconds. Well, who's counting? So I'll keep it to a few issues and be as brief as possible. I'm doing my best, okay? Can you hear me now?
Come closer! Closer! Don't be shy, come on, come on!
I'm going to raise my voice as best I can. All right. Perfect. The hate offences bill is a threat to free speech. And that's the focus of our attention today. But before I get to that, there are some other pieces of legislation you should know about that are problematic when it comes to free speech. Buried in the Harmful Communications Act 2022 is a section that criminalises the distribution or publication of any threatening or grossly offensive communication to another person intending by such distribution or publication to cause harm, including psychological harm. What, you might wonder, is a grossly offensive communication? Well, you'll have to look elsewhere other than the Act to find out, because the term grossly offensive isn't mentioned in the interpretation section of the Act. What a surprise. The possibility of this section being used to restrict freedom of speech should be obvious. In a Dáil debate, even Paul Murphy, not someone with whom I usually find myself in agreement, was moved to protest. The stalking bill contains a definition of stalking that includes persistently communicating by any means of communication with or about a person, attempting to make repeated unwanted contact with a person, or monitoring a person by any means. These sections open the possibility of criminalising attempts to communicate with public representatives, something obviously they don't want you to do. The gigantic Online Safety Bill 2022 establishes a commission with extraordinarily extensive powers to regulate online streaming services and broadcasters. The Commissioner will have the power to levy swingeing fines on social media services that fail to abide by the codes that the Commission draws up. Section 46 of the Act outlines a long list of specific forms of harmful content, including subsection 4, which prohibits the publication of, quote, material, images or sounds which are threatening, abusive, and this one is the good one, or insulting. And subsection 5, threatening, abusive, or insulting again, images or sounds whose broadcast is intended or, having regard to all the circumstances, is likely to stir up hatred. So it's not just the current bill, it's these other ones which are forming a circle around us and restricting our freedom to speak. Now to the bill. Just to say, by the way, before I finish on that section, Tracy O'Mahony, who's a barrister in Galway, has a very informative video on this material. You could find a link to it in a piece that I wrote and which was published on Gript yesterday, which includes a link to her video and also to 2 videos of mine. All right, now to the bill. The bill has 3 focal points: genocide, hate crime, and hate speech. I'll skip over the genocide ones simply in the interest of time, simply to say that this appears to have been the primary concern of the EU Framework Directive that the Hate Offences Bill is meant to give effect to. That leaves hate crime and hate speech. Very briefly on hate crime. We can deal with it summarily. Hate crime is something that's already a crime that's deemed to be motivated by hate. You get one tariff for the crime and another for the hate. And since hate is the thought, the hate element in hate crime is thought crime. You're being punished for what you were thinking. You are being punished for the motive with which you commit a crime. Why hate is singled out in this way is not obvious. Why not pride crime or gluttony crime, or envy crime. All of these are motives for crimes, but they don't count apparently. There are at least two problems with hate crime. One, it gives certain groups of people special legal privileges which would seem, on the face of it, to be discriminatory, since the Constitution says, quote, all citizens shall, as human persons, be held equal before the law. It is hard to see how privileging certain named groups as categories of victims is in conformity with that provision. The second problem with hate crime is that, in fact, it's likely to be counterproductive. If people have negative attitudes towards particular groups because they think they have special privileges, whether they actually do or not, those attitudes are not likely to be dissipated by according them special legal privileges. In fact, they're going to be reinforced. The whole thing is counterproductive. I pointed this out, by the way, to the Department of Justice when I was part of the submission group back in 2019, and you can tell the effect my words have had, which is zero. By the way, it should be noted that in general, the 2002 bill doesn't require intention as the 1989 Incitement to Hatred Act does. In other words, recklessness is sufficient, and that's a much lower barrier that they have to cross. The old Act allowed the defence of intention, that, in other words, you could show that your intention couldn't be shown, or you could show that you didn't have an intention. And moreover, the new bill increases the penalties for the offence significantly. So it's a step in the wrong direction. All right, now to hate speech. Hate speech is meant to be a crime in its own right. It's really important to distinguish it from hate crime as such. The key concepts here are incitement, hatred, and violence. And again, there's really much that we could say about this. I'm only going to focus on two small points. The first, which I can't go into detail today, is the whole concept of incitement. Is the expression of hate necessarily incitement to hate or even to violence? And the answer clearly is no. But I suggest that that's not how this legislation will be taken. What control does an ordinary citizen have over the actions of another? In my case, none. Zero. Okay. If your hate does induce another person to hate or be violent, what happens to the responsibility of those other people for what they think and do? I've got enough trouble, I don't know about you, but I've got enough trouble being responsible for what I think and what I do, and I'm sure as hell not responsible for what anybody else thinks or does. Furthermore, incitement to hate is one thing, and incitement to violence is quite another, and there is no necessary connection between the two. The Hate Offences Bill, its full title is the Criminal Justice Incitement to Violence or Hatred and Hate Offences Bill 2022. The bill covers both hatred and violence, whereas the 1989 bill covers only hatred. Why are hatred and violence bundled up together unless the point is to link hatred intrinsically to violence? There is no necessary connection. Simon Harris thinks that it's absolutely your right to say offensive things, but not to say something that incites hatred or danger towards another person. How could Mr. Harris distinguish between offensive and incitement? Shouldn't any legislation distinguish clearly between being offensive and inciting, whether to hate or to violence? And I tell you something, this legislation doesn't do that. The second problem is that the bill opens the door to unwarrantable state intrusion into the speech and communications of citizens, and that brings us to the small matter of Section 15, the one that concerns search warrants. I hadn't really looked at this section of the bill until a few days ago, and I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this is one scary provision. The bill says, if a judge of the district court is satisfied by information on oath of a member, And then it goes on. And you say, what member? Member of what? What are you talking about? You have to go down to section 10 to find out that they're talking about a member of An Garda Síochána. And when you do that, you discover that it refers you to the Garda Síochána Act 2005, section 3.1. It says a member in relation to An Garda Síochána means a member of any rank. I want you to bear that in mind. A member of any rank appointed under the appropriate provisions. So putting it all together, unless there are other provisions of which I'm not aware, either in this legislation or in other legislation, it would seem that any Garda, not necessarily a senior officer, chief superintendent, not even an inspector, not even a sergeant, that any Garda can go to the district court and swear the requisite oath and apply for a search warrant. The search and seizure provisions of the 1989 Act required the swearer to be not below the rank of sergeant. By the way, just before I came out, I saw on YouTube a video of Senator Sharon Pugin speaking about this. If you get a chance, find that video and look at it. She's able to go into it in more detail than I can do today. And if you're not horrified and scared by this, then you're not a human being. Now, the warrant can be sought under three heads, the last one of which is the most significant, and that is the offence of preparing or possessing material likely to incite violence or hatred against persons on account of their protected characteristics. The warrant, if granted, wait for this, okay, I want you to pay attention to this. The warrant, if granted, will allow the Garda to enter by force, if necessary, a place named in the warrant. Search it and any persons found at that place. Examine, seize and retain anything found at that place or in possession of the persons found at that place, and compel those at the place of the search to hand over passwords to allow access to their electronic devices. I don't know if that scares you, but that scares the hell out of me. The bill does provide a defense. You can say that your material is a contribution to literary, artistic, political, scientific, religious, or academic discourse. But if you want to say this after your house has been searched, after the people in your house have been searched, after your property has been confiscated, okay, then that's scant compensation for having, as I said, your house invaded and your property and persons searched. The process here is the punishment. It's preemptive punishment before you are ever determined to be guilty of an offence. Now, to adapt what one of my respondents said on Twitter, the police should police the streets and not the tweets. All right, I'm just about to finish up. Here's my conclusion. Unless the state plans with a large number of people in jail, the bill is clearly intended to induce self-censorship, to have a chilling effect on your speech and on your thinking. Just like hate crime, the crime of hate speech is in the end all about thought crime. Remember that I don't know if you know the seminal case in the UK where Harry Miller, who was an ex-policeman, was approached by a police officer with a wonderful name, Gull, PC Gull, who ended up telling him, "I need to check your thinking." And that's exactly what they're doing, ladies and gentlemen. They are out to check your thinking. When we put all the pieces of legislation I've mentioned together with the Criminal Justice Incitement to Violence or Hatred or Hate Offences Bill, it seems that in years to come, Irish citizens will be faced with formidable legal obstacles to give effect to their constitutional right to express freely their convictions and opinions. That's in the Constitution. In 2016, Leo Varadkar was of the opinion that speech should never be throttled. How art the mighty fallen, Leo? Free speech. I'm almost done. Free speech. I thought you were cheering my name there for one reason. Free speech is not just for the virtuous and the wise. It is also for the vicious and the stupid. And it's even for those of us, most of us I suspect, who aren't especially virtuous or vicious, or especially wise or stupid. It's for me and it's for you. In a free society, you shouldn't be obliged by law to check your thinking. And the only constraints in your communications should be the operations of social norms that well-mannered persons have assimilated through their upbringing. Some have suggested that this bill might be redrafted. I hope I won't be thought guilty of incitement to hatred or violence if I suggest that the only kind of redrafting for which this bill is suitable involves a fireplace and some matches. Thank you.
And now, before he goes, you will have to do a Gerard. Hate speech. What is hate speech? It's not really defined in the legislation. What exactly is? Oh, the tall man comes up. What is hate speech? Well, let me give a definition. Hate speech is speech that the government hates. And what's clear over the last number of years, with the legislation that's been brought in, and you can see even about the priority of people on the housing list, that the people who the Irish government hate, it's the Irish people. We're clearly always last on the list. We're the idiots who go to work and pay taxes. And as the government decides who gets the money, who gets the fruits of our labour. And as we're out working, they're in the dole, working and scheming and scamming to remove our rights to speak freely. The lockdown period was a bad time for Ireland. And the government got into the bad habit of thinking that they could tell us where we could go, who we could see. Could we see our parents or could we not? Well, we should tell the whole lot of them, no way! No way, Jose or little Leo. And I'm very sorry to see that every agency of the state was brought in to work to ensure the compliance and the fear of the Irish people. You can see there, I better put through the moment. We can see that the media, what has happened in Ireland is that we have the formation of a uni-party. I'm stealing your line, Michael, sorry about that. Formation of the coalescing of the political class and the media class and the NGO class. NGOs get 8% of all taxpayers' money spent in Ireland every year. But did you see that story there, was it yesterday, about fake tan in the Irish Times? It was actually a fake story about fake tan. It was absolutely delicious, I loved it. But it shows that the media, we could see during the lockdown, instead of the media holding the government, the powerful to account, they were just government mouthpieces, lackeys of those in power. Instead of holding power to account, all they did was abuse us and try to generate fear. Well, do you know what? We're not afraid! They think, those morons, they think that they're going to intimidate us. They'll not intimidate us. We don't have to get angry. No, we just have to get even. We never beat the Irish. You'll never beat the Irish. You'll never beat the Irish. Hey, Gerard, I'm going to teach you how to do this. But let's look at this slide. So the media, instead of holding the powerful to account, are their little lackeys who turn around to us, try to generate a culture of fear and compliance in the Irish people. But it won't work, because many, many people around the country have started to wake up, see what's going on, and compared to 4 and 5 years ago, we had first rally against the UN Migration Pact outside the Dáil. I think it was November 2018. And there's only 150 people now. Well, we can see there, thanks to the many, many people here from around the country, that the people are rising up. They've had enough of a power-hungry government. And all around Ireland in the last 6 months, you had rallies and marches against the imposition of the colonisation of our country by these traitorous politicians and this traitorous Dáil. Yeah, so the prostitutes of Ireland, the Irish media, have done us no favours, but that's no change. They were always licking the boots of the powerful. Thanks for that. This is where kind of comedy skills come in, and I should kind of interject with it.
Do the dad jokes.
With my dad jokes. Thanks, Paul. Right, but I will speak on the bill. So basically, this, and always, like I would urge you, always be very, very careful about the language you use. Never use the language of your enemy, which is hate speech bill, because it's an anti-free speech bill. Always name, claim, and tame language. It's our words. We decide our words. They decide their words, and never repeat what your enemy wants. Secondly, we can see that at the moment, under the Irish Constitution, there's equality of all citizens before the law. What this legislation means to bring in is inequality of all citizens before the law, that certain groups who the government chooses, selects, that they are given certain privileges over and above everybody else. And of course, who comes bottom of the list? Paddy! Instead of Ireland first, it's always Paddy last. That's what happens in Ireland. So it introduces inequality before the law and makes the government gets to select certain groups who have privilege. And there's certain aspects, it's been made very clear in the Dáil already. Cathal Crowell, Fianna Fáil, or Fianna Fáil, TD down in Clare, has made comments that, he actually said in the Dáil that then part of the intent of this bill was to shut down the Irish Freedom Party and the views that it held. And so they make it very clear, it's about this bill is all about censored. Is there anybody out here who's willing to be censored? No! I thought not. Second aspect of this bill, which Gerard touched on there, is section 15, where it's a thought crime legislation, where at the whim of a Garda who suspects that someone may have material in their possession which some people may perceive as hateful, that they can go and ask a judge and get a search warrant to take away, break into the house with reasonable force, it says, take all their communication material, be it phones and computers, and also to search all the friends and the family inside that property at the minute. It is unbelievable. This is like we used to have, Ireland used to be under Cromwellian rule. And we used to have, but now this legislation is Orwellian. And it is like dystopian in its nature. It's very, very dangerous. But let's make sure, everybody, that we will stand against it. And do you know one thing? The only thing that makes these people afraid is, one, you get noticed going out rallies on the street. So fair play to everybody who's gone out in the last 6 months and rallied to show the government that we're opposed to the colonisation of Ireland, because we never asked for it and we don't want it. Instead, what we want is a free people in a free country, and we'll decide what we think and what we say. So get out, show your feelings to people, get on to your senator and make very clear to the 50 senators in there that this legislation must be stopped. The amendments must be, a raft of amendments must be put in to stop the real effect of this legislation. But let's be very clear, the only thing that politicians in Ireland fear is losing votes and losing money. So we are looking for more candidates to run in the next general election. So if you're frisky for a run in the election, in the Grand National of the general election, please make your name and voice heard to yourselves, because we want to run candidate in every constituency in the country that we can generate fear and loathing in the political class in Ireland, that we need to make these people afraid of us, afraid of the Irish people, instead of them thinking they can generate fear with us. No way. So, I'm going to introduce a number of people. I will start first with candidates and people who are running as candidates for the Irish Freedom Party. So first of all, Daithí O'Fallon from County Mayo. He's well dressed today. Where is he? Oh, look at that. Oh, girls. Look, he's made an effort. So, ladies and gentlemen, Daithí O'Fallon. Give him a full applause.
Good afternoon. Yeah, loud enough? Yeah. Loud enough. Good. Right, well, where does the impetus for Ireland's new hate speech bill come from? In short, it's coming from the EU. Thank you very much. Good start. If you read the bill, on the bottom of page 2, you'll see the word schedule. Now, what a schedule is in this case, it's a document that has actually been attached to the bill. The reason is you can't understand the bill without understanding the attachment. Under that